Hello, everyone. Before we get started, I want to immediately begin with a very quick disclaimer to everyone watching. This includes to overall fans of Destiny 2, Bungie, the casual viewer who may have found this in their YouTube recommendations, current or previous dedicated players, or others maybe a bit down with recent events that have been going on, fortunately, at Bungie. This video is my own personal essay or project and a bit of a final goodbye to a video game which I have played for a long time. I just wanted to express my own personal thoughts and how I feel about this game before I move on to other things outside of Destiny 2 and just gaming and just life stuff in general. I have no disrespect to the developers at Bungie that are working on this, or Marathon, or any other games that they're currently working on, as I believe they have created many great things in the past and as of right now in current recent releases and what they have put out. There are many other points I want to talk about, but as I feel there have been many others that have already brought up these concerns, I hate to keep repeating the same things that you have most likely already heard. I am in no way speaking for everyone in the community. If you are currently playing Destiny 2 and plan on sticking it out till the final shape, which is the last expansion, or if you are having fun with how things are, more power to you. Please enjoy and have a blast. You're mostly having more fun than I am. If you're having fun in the game in the current state, I am not asking you to think differently, rather to listen to one's opinion and a long-time player who has decided to stop playing heading into the final shape expansion. Apologies ahead of time if I do get any previous parts a bit ranty in this, as I just want to simply express my own opinions, my thoughts about the game, move on, not having to look back at this game for most likely quite some time, or as my main game. In the background is most likely just going to be some random clips and highlights that I have stored on my hard drive here before I just delete them, so I don't need to let them hog up space on my storage. But thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Let's begin with how my journey started with Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is a bit of a complex game if you were to start playing as of right now, even today, which I got into earlier on around 2019. I recently found myself not playing as much of my previous main game, being Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which is now Counter-Strike 2. That game I've logged almost 1,800 hours on, and I thought it was time to look into something else just to grind out and just look into spending a lot of time into. That game would soon be Destiny 2. Previously, when the game published back then by Activision Blizzard, I bought it during a sale to check it out to see what it was all about with some of my friends. I did play the previous first Destiny on my Xbox 360, but it was mostly during the beta testing stage when the open beta was available. I never bought the game much else afterwards, as I did have many other friends that were planning to play it during that time. And as last I can recall, my Xbox Gold, if any of you guys are old enough to know what that is, was running out, and I wouldn't be able to play online anyways, as my subscription was going to end. And during that time, I didn't have a job, so wasn't able to really refresh that myself. So after spending some time in the game blind without any help at all, I went for each of the original game story before they got completely nuked into oblivion due to sun descending, which Bungie really needs to bring that back, but that's a completely different topic, which I know the community has been talking about before. I wasn't having fun with it at the start till I came back finding I had to quit the game once things were getting really interesting, and soon decided this would be my new main game, which for me, I basically quit out right as I finished the Forsaken campaign, which Forsaken endgame was pretty much like the best kind of endgame that you could have gone, which I don't think we're going to get anything matching to that anytime soon, unfortunately. Things overall with the lifestyle of the game went pretty well with its highs, lows. Met new friends along my journey, joined different clans, learned a few big raids to complete alongside them. Unfortunately, as of right now, which I'll explain later on, the game isn't what it once was, and I found myself getting affected by it in a very negative way. I want to discuss these next few points and share my thoughts why I've been going through and how I made the difficult decision to no longer play and support this game as of today. I want to talk about next what I believe is essentially what I call, at least, is the Destiny 2 curse, or the curse of Destiny 2. Sounds a bit weird, but just bear with me just for a little bit here. I've seen this a lot in the community, which again, I just wanted to express and help anyone who is unable to break free from this. What I am talking about is something I will admit that I was a part of, but was able to finally break free from. As a longtime Destiny 2 player, you get into that stage and that rhythm that this is your main game. This is the game that you're gonna dive in 3,000 plus hours from and not play any other game pretty much. This game I thought I would play every day once I got home from school or work, that were to grind out some related progress on my character, such as leveling it up, setting small goals, farming specific loot I want to solo or just play with friends. Over time, I found myself not having as much fun, and yet I'm still playing Destiny 2, like from those times, and just doing the same things over and over, repeatedly. If you're a player of Destiny 2, you've probably seen the same gameplay loop every single few months, every few seasons. I've seen people on social media joke about this. I've joked about this as well until I found out that this was affecting me in a really bad way. I wasn't finding Destiny 2 as satisfying as to play just before going to bed, waking up the next day refreshed. Instead, I maybe woke up the next day more stressed out and just not ready just to do anything else. Rather, I just felt more just stressed overall again. I found myself even staying up to like 2 in the morning, just doing things mindlessly because I was just looking for an excuse to do anything to keep me playing Destiny 2. The worst part about this for me is becoming increasingly difficult for me to even play any other video game that wasn't Destiny 2 at that time. I've tried playing other games and maybe I played it for a little bit and then after that I just couldn't play it or even play anything else at all, even let alone Destiny 2. I didn't know what was wrong with me during the time. I almost felt like I was bloodbound basically to playing Destiny 2 only, which of course realistically it wasn't the case. I could play another game, I could stop playing it. I didn't have to play at all. My mind was at the stage that I just really wanted to spend more time um playing this specific video game rather than working on myself and projects just outside of gaming or just anything that's just not gaming besides that. Some days I would just sleep later and it unfortunately did affect me mentally and I did realize and reflect that it was a bit of a problem early on. So I ended up basically stuck in this endless loop until I was finally able to break through, which did take time for me. For me, after much consideration and personal reflection, I did decide to put my foot on the ground and decided to basically stop playing Destiny 2 in its entirety, pretty much, at least mainly. I may jump back once in a while to maybe help out some friends if they need to fill in for a raid, need help with a dungeon, maybe a friend who's starting the game really wants to get into it needs help. I don't mind of jumping back in to help them at all as long as it's fun. But I won't be playing this game now on a daily basis as I have previously done. I had personally for me for Destiny 2, the first thing that mostly appealed to me was in terms of its PvP mode, or aka player versus player combat and overall sandbox. Would come back with the content and the love that it actually deserves. PvP for me over the past few years has received very little content, and even with it did, it wasn't the best that we got. Now, not saying that there hasn't been any good changes, especially with Trials, the whole Trials of Osiris like weekend mode that launches every weekend, I think has gotten massive improvements. Unfortunately for me, it just hasn't really been worth it for me to jump back, considering some other factors that I personally have not really enjoyed my time just trying to play the game. Things for me got super stale, especially when they removed a bunch of maps via sunsetting, which made things even less fun, and it's even worse when they put out new maps that aren't really as good, aka just Junction. The new map which they released out, which was the Vex Network, I completely forgot what it was because I pretty much stopped playing the game at that point. I thought it looked pretty good, but just Junction just pretty much looks like it was built off just like the Rift game mode, which is not the most ideal thing, unfortunately, to be honest, in my opinion. I thought maybe Bungie would listen to us and give us what we want, but instead they make the announcement of a new IP or game they're working on called Marathon. From what it looks like and what I heard and everything from Marathon, it looks like its own Bungie's take on an extraction shooter. If anyone again doesn't know what it is, it's basically a take on the current popular Escape from Tarkov. You basically spawn in, you get loot, you extract, you go against other players and everything. I won't go dive into that, but it's basically something like that. This announcement for me overall really devastated me, as it seems Bungie was focusing, or instead of focusing on the PvP mode of Destiny 2 that I've come to love so much, including many others, they decided instead to focus something entirely different. Now, there's nothing wrong for me of a company that I follow making a new game. There's no problem, but the problem is that from the overall first look at it, it just looks like with the less amount of PvP content we've been getting, and then all of a sudden they're announcing extractor shooter, which is basically PvP, I guess you could say in a way, that decided to put resources into that and not just split up the resources between them. It's it's devastating. It really sucks because I just assume at this point that they're not focusing much on Destiny 2 PvP and they're working on their new game, which ultimately is their decision. There's not much we can really do to change that, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's kind of just how it is. Now, I know they did confirm they were going to make map packs to PvP, similar to like Halo multiplayer map packs. My issue is how much are they going to cost? Or, oh no, sorry, I think they're actually going to be free. I'm assuming they don't change anything last minute, of course. But even with this, I don't think it's going to save the overall PvP mode for me entirely, to be honest. PvP has a whole lot of other issues than just the new maps. I guess I'll simply say like the biggest debate going on right now with PvP in general is SBMM, or aka skill-based matchmaking. I'm not fully against it. The problem for me for skill-based matchmaking is that it doesn't work if you don't have enough people or your player base playing PvP. Otherwise, you're basically matching the same people over and over again, and the games will get stale and just not fun. For example, I play a Trials of Osiris match, I lose the match. Next card, or I reset my card, guess what? I'm going against the same person again, which is just tiring because I just lost against them. Yet the game thinks that I should be matched up against them, which wasn't fun at all. The other thing as well I want to point out is that the overall sandbox changes in Destiny 2 are changing much more a lot than when I first joined the game. The first time when I first joined the game was back when Forsaken, and during then the game didn't have that many changes in terms of sandbox. Even if they were maybe released out every expansion, so every year. So things were pretty easy to, or we have a lot of time to basically adjust the sandbox. But now with the new subclasses and everything, things are just completely rampant as to more issues with having to balance, which balancing is never going to be perfect at the end of the day. Metas change season to season, you have to adapt to it. But the problem with that is that it lacks the fun and like flexibility that you can run any kind of build or class and just be generally good with it. Unfortunately for that is a very difficult thing to nail down, and I don't blame Bungie for not being able to do that, as it is a very like difficult point or balancing act to get to. I was pretty much at this point looking for an excuse at this point to pretty much stop playing the game, realizing it was affecting me mentally and how I felt in my daily life, as I explained before. Of course, I hate assuming things in general, despite Bungie has said that at the point I wanted to see it to believe it. I was at the point of launching the game pretty much at this point and just sitting in orbit and just struggling to find something to do, or just playing anything to see that my time is ultimately not well spent. Will it be coming back to this game? Probably not, unless Bungie is able to pull a 180 and fix the current issues that I personally have with it. Again, I will see it to believe it if something magical ever happened in this game, as I've seen 1,000 hours of commitment into this. Destiny 2 is a general fun game when I first started, which included just doing different activities that the game did have, such as strikes, nightfalls, crucible, gambit, dungeons, etc. Overall, a lot of things to do varying on your own personal comfort and knowledge of the game. When starting to play Destiny 2, everything looked and felt fun, playing different missions, exploring different areas, defeating big and different bosses, learning stories and maybe lore as well, wielding freaking space magic, blowing up enemies. But after a lot of repetition, or I guess as much myself of having 1,000 or 3,000 hours, you soon find yourself having to complete this mission to level up your character, because that's how the game is. You play a game mode 3 times that you hate, definitely not Gambit, just to get a reward that is almost RNG and luck based. You play another mode for 3 times, which is just boring, and the same thing cycles week after week. You find yourself in this loop, you just never stop yourself, because if you do, you feel like you're missing out on everything. This was how the game was for quite some time, and things have changed to make it less daunting, thankfully. But yet, at the same time, everything starts to slowly become a chore because you're just doing the same thing over and over again, and you just don't get the same satisfaction. Every Tuesday, you log in to get your challenges done, which, depending on how much you play, you may not even get them done all the time before the next week. You find yourself in the hole that you feel that you need to stay, but realistically, you can technically leave anytime you want. There's really nothing stopping you. I admit, I was one of these people that was too afraid to climb out and just to try to go do something else. Now, I'm not sure, maybe it was just fear of FOMO or aka fear of missing out because I did have many friends that did play the game as well. I played with a few clanmates, but we never really stuck to playing together very long term. You get stuck in this weird addiction where you keep playing the game, yet you just can't stop almost. I think the worst part for me was when I bought the annual pass for Beyond Light during the previous few expansions or such, which pre-orders all the content and seasons being released later in the year. You find yourself almost basically signing yourself a contract that you are going to be playing Destiny 2 for the next year, whether you like it or not. And that's basically because if you don't basically play any of the content or get what you get, which disappears the next year, you basically just threw away your $125 and you're not getting your money's worth out of it. Personally, I'm glad I just personally decided to draw my own line saying that, hey, if enough is enough, I'm definitely not spending another $125 just to be trapped in this hole, which I'm pretending that I can't get out of. I've seen many others with this as well struggle with this. But however, if you are of course wanting to stick this out to the very end and spend a whole amount to do so, I am not stopping you, but just asking you to think that, is it really worth it? Are you actually having fun? Or will it just become a chore that just makes sorry, excuse me, just to make sure that you get your money's worth and you can't just play something else at least, which it just ends up another whole year of you going through a checklist of things that you're forcing yourself to do when realistically you technically don't. From what I learned in my time of playing Destiny 2 is you need to make sure you are setting your own limits and standards when playing the game, or just any kind of game in general. Stop going for challenges that makes the game less fun to you just because there is, quote, nothing to do, and I quote, in the game. Now, of course, if you are a content creator, I understand it's a different story where you want that attraction to bring in a new audience, but sometimes it may not be worth it. Not pointing names on specific people, but I have seen and heard of people setting very unrealistic realistic expectations and goals that not only are mentally draining, but also yield very little results and sense of accomplishment at the end. Example of these are not limited to solo Grandmaster Nightfalls, solo Flawless Master dungeon runs, back to back to back to back to back solo Flawless dungeon completions, and a mixture of these activities with their own restrictions and modifiers. People doing these end up getting not much of a reward for their time committed. For example, you're not going to get anything out of a Solar Grandmaster Nightfall emblem, but if you want to do that for your own personal goal, that's fine. Just make sure that you're not sacrificing your own mentality to do that, of course. I thankfully never fell into this specific hole, but I envy the many people that do this for content creation or not. Understand from a content creation standpoint, you want to put yourself out there as being unique. But sometimes you need to draw the line in you taking your shot, and if it's worth it in the end. If you strike good overall viewership from your creative idea or your challenge idea, that's awesome. Congrats to you, because personally for me, I could never be that creative. Just make sure you can remain consistent with it, and just most importantly, actually have fun with it. But there's a point where you need to consider if it's worth to keep going for your own sake and state of your own health. Because a wide reason why I bring this up is because I've heard of a streamer going live for 24 hours with very little breaks just to get a challenge done for some reason as soon as possible. The activity which they were doing, of course, in the game has no known expiry date. It's not like it's going away and you're procrastinating to finish it or do your challenge in like a day. So there's no FOMO, aka, again, fear of missing out. Yet they couldn't get themselves just to have a good night's rest just to try again tomorrow. Because believe me, I set my own challenge to solo flawless the Grasp of Avarice dungeon in a full completion. I decided that when I was stuck at the final boss, I decided just to get a good night's rest and I finish it up tomorrow. And guess what? I finished up in 30 minutes because I had a good night's rest. My body was able to recover and I was basically good to go. So, as cheeky as it says from other people just to go touch some grass, go get some sleep. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to stay up to 3 in the morning just to get a challenge done. There's always a new day that you can do it. So always just remember just to pace yourself. I want to give a general message to anyone struggling with this or anyone just playing the game and not just for content creation. If you are a content creator or play Destiny 2 in general, set your own realistic goals that you know you can achieve. Plan your time well before making the commitment. Take your time when possible, as this isn't a marathon of a game. You see what I did there? Because upcoming marathon game. Anyways, complete more smaller goals so you get a sense that you're moving forward to a bigger achievement. Destiny 2, I will say this to many others, Destiny 2 is not the one and only game you have. I guarantee you have something else on your library, your Steam library of your 100 plus games that you haven't touched, or even an Xbox Game Pass Xbox Game Pass subscription that you have that you can play that will make you a lot more happier. For example, as of right now, I'm doing my second playthrough of Red Dead Redemption 2 ever since I stopped playing Destiny 2, and I'm having the time of my life just take my time just playing the game again. Stop playing a game that is not making you happy, and that goes for any game, not just for Destiny 2. You're, again, not financially obligated to play this game. Just because you spent $120 on the deluxe pack, as I have as well, doesn't mean you need to keep up with everything. In fact, it may be better just to play catch up ultimately in the game before everything goes away. If you have nothing to do in the game, you don't need to keep playing this game. If you still want to keep up with playing Destiny 2, there's nothing wrong with just taking a small break and coming back to things you want to grind out for. When there's nothing to do, there's no sense in attacking developers and saying, oh, there's nothing to do, I want more things to do, I want to make more things. Just let the developers work their magic, do what they need to do, and await the next wave of content. Play anything else that is soothing to you and your friends that helps you de-stress for the next day. Video games should be helpful in de-stressing you for what's to come in the next morning or your next day when you wake up, and not to stress you out on a daily basis. Whew, okay, alright, sorry I got a little bit, almost lost my cool there. Anyways, just to wrap it up here for the video here for today, everyone, Destiny 2 overall, it's a great game, but like many games, it has its flaws. The flaws of this game I've seen, unfortunately, have impacted me and most likely some others mentally, but they don't realize it. Only few people like me have recently stopped, or maybe soon will be. I could have talked about many other issues as well, but honestly, I didn't want to repeat many things that many people have already said. If people were to ask me of getting into Destiny 2, it would be something to get into. I would probably lead them with a general warning of what to expect. If it's going to be a new big main game they just want to jump into, then yes, I would definitely wouldn't mind helping them out at all. Just overall, this game for me personally is not one I'll be playing every day or every week from now on, at least by myself. Will this game have a great comeback? Only time will tell, as to me, actions speak louder than words. Destiny 2 was a game I started with some bumps in a row, but this year's recent expansion of Lightfall was a letdown compared to its predecessors. Even Witch Queen, which we came off such a great expansion, falling beyond light, and then we came back down with Lightfall. And now, this especially as we're closing in with the final shape for the final expansion, it just doesn't seem as that we're going to be getting enough time to fix all these issues before its epic conclusion. And as I've heard this whole episodes and epilogue stuff that they're setting up, I don't know how it's going to go. We don't know how much content we're going to get. Everything is not really set in stone. It shows a bit of a roadmap, but honestly, I'd rather just see what the final product actually is. It's heartbreaking that you no longer support a game that you have spent so much time and commitment to, but sometimes you have to do what's best for yourself in everything, even just outside of gaming in general. And just don't forget to also have fun with it. That's what we do for why we play video games, to de-stress and just have fun by ourselves or even with friends. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. I plan to maybe make more of these video essays in the future. Please let me know if you have any ideas or any topics you want me to discuss, whether that's Destiny 2 or just gaming stuff in general. Anyway guys, thanks for tuning in. Take care everyone. Hope you have yourself a good day. Peace out.